We often find ourselves in the most absurd situation. We go through life treating everything with such unbearable gravity, as though this whole existence were a high-stakes, one-shot examination where a single misstep seals our fate in perpetual failure. But what if I were to tell you that this entire structure, this grand, immersive drama we call life, is fundamentally nothing more than an elaborate, magnificent game? And like any game, the moment you grasp the underlying rules, you unlock the ability to play it with extraordinary mastery and, dare I suggest, an exhilarating sense of freedom and joy. Pause for a moment and genuinely reflect. When we were children, playing was our default setting. We were absorbed in games of make-believe, being the fearless pirate, hosting elaborate tea parties, or saving the day as a superhero. You threw your whole being into these roles. You were absolutely the queen, the space explorer, the dragon. Yet deep down, you never truly forgot that it was all just a game. The moment you heard the dinner bell, you instantly dropped the persona. You didn't cling desperately to the royal title, and you certainly didn't suffer an existential crisis when the game was over. Somehow, along the path to adulthood, we let go of that key understanding. We became, in essence, method actors on the cosmic stage of life. We immersed ourselves so deeply in our adopted roles, the CEO, the struggling artist, the dedicated parent, that we genuinely forgot we were acting. We began to believe, I am the success, or I am the failure. When you lose sight of the fact that you're simply playing a role, the game ceases to be fun and becomes a self-made prison. Now, when I assert that life is a game, I'm not dismissing it as meaningless or trivial. Games are serious business. The skillful athlete plays with every fiber of their being, with intense passion and commitment, but they always maintain what we might call a light touch. The very first principle of this cosmic game is perhaps the most shocking. You are not the identity you hold in your mind, the individual you refer to by your name, with your specific past, your unique anxieties, and your personal aspirations. That is merely your character within the game. It is a mask, a temporary persona you inhabit so convincingly that you've managed to completely fool the player, which is you. But who then is the real you? This is where the plot truly thickens. The real you is the player, not the character. You are the awareness, the silent, unchanging space that observes all of your thoughts, your feelings, and your physical sensations. You are the infinite stage upon which this entire magnificent drama unfolds. Once this sinks in, truly, profoundly sinks in, the game's dynamic is utterly transformed. You realize you've been behaving like an actor who became so lost in their character's emotional turmoil that they forgot they have the choice to simply take off the costume and go home. You realize you are not trapped within the character. You are free to play it brilliantly, enjoy the complexities of its story, but you are not obligated to be imprisoned by its limitations. Here is a second rule that virtually all players completely miss. The game has no ultimate victory condition. There is no grand final trophy, no finishing line where you finally declare permanent triumph and retire. The entire purpose of the game is the playing itself. We have been conditioned to see life as a journey with a distant, critical destination, but it is much more akin to dancing or listening to music. You don't dance to arrive at a specific spot on the dance floor. You don't listen to a symphony just to reach the final chord. The entire meaning resides in the movement, in the flow, in the present moment of the performance. Yet, we have frantically transformed life into a breathless race. We rush through our childhoods, desperate to be adults. We hurry through our education to get to our careers. We relentlessly work toward retirement, and then many find themselves sitting still, suddenly realizing that they have no idea where it all went. We were so obsessively focused on getting somewhere else that we tragically missed the only place we ever actually existed. Here. Now. This moment. The game is only ever played in the now. Not in the promise of a happier tomorrow. Not in the nostalgia of a better yesterday. Right now is the only time the pieces are actually moving on the board. Most of us are like concert goers who spend the entire performance buried in the program notes, trying to predict the next act, utterly failing to listen to the extraordinary music playing right in front of them. Here's another fascinating and deeply reassuring element of the game. It is completely rigged in your favor. How can this be? Because regardless of what situations you face, regardless of the role you currently find yourself playing, you can't actually lose. Remember, you are not just your character, you are the entire game itself. Consider the experience of a dream. You might be terrified, pursued by a looming shadow. But upon waking, you realize you were both the one being chased and the frightening monster doing the chasing. You encompass the entire dream world. In the same profound way, you are not merely one pawn in the cosmic game. You are the game playing itself. This may sound abstract, but think about this. Every individual who annoys you, every circumstance that tests your resilience, they are all facets of your experience. They exist within the boundaries of your awareness. In a very tangible sense, the universe as you perceive it is unfolding inside your consciousness. You are not a tiny, isolated entity battling a cruel, external world. You are the world itself observing its own reflection through the limited lens of what you call you. Once you truly grasp this cosmic joke, and it is a magnificent joke, your entire approach to living will fundamentally shift. You instantly stop taking everything so crushingly personally. When criticism comes your way, instead of becoming defensive, you might observe it with curiosity. Here is the universe playing the role of the critic. How fascinating! What valuable insight can I extract from this particular performance? When facing a crushing difficulty, instead of the helpless question, why is this happening to me? You are empowered to ask, why am I happening to this? Because if you are the whole game, you cannot be a passive victim of circumstances. You are, in reality, circumstances appearing to yourself as a challenge, simply to make the game infinitely more engaging. Now, let me emphasize a critical point. Understanding this does not imply becoming passive or indifferent. Quite the opposite. When you know you are playing a game, you are liberated to play it with immense skill and overflowing enthusiasm. You can care deeply about your strategic moves without being utterly crushed if they don't produce a perfect outcome. You can love with your whole heart without being obliterated if that love is not reciprocated perfectly. You can pursue your work with deep passion without being destroyed. If immediate, massive success is not the result, the secret is maintaining that light touch. It's like being a brilliant jazz musician. You know the essential framework of the song, but you are perpetually ready to improvise. You respond fluidly to the movements of the other players. You never attempt to force the music into a stiff, predetermined structure. You flow with it, you play with it, you dance with the unfolding melody. Most people approach life as if they are playing classical music with an authoritarian conductor. Every single note must be exactly as written. This leaves no room for spontaneity, no space for the life-giving breath of creativity. But life is fundamentally jazz. The core rhythm is present, yet within that rhythm, there are boundless, infinite avenues for improvisation and genuine play. Here is one of the most wonderfully liberating rules of the game. You do not have to be consistent. You are under zero obligation to be the same person you were just 5 minutes ago. The character you've been inhabiting, with all its inherent fears, limitations, and perceived flaws, is not an immutable, permanent fixture. It is more like a piece of clothing that you have the power to change We waste so much vital energy defending our self-image, desperately protecting our reputation, and fiercely maintaining a rigid personality. But what if, in each moment, you could choose to be anyone you wish? What if, instead of being shackled by your personal history, you could constantly reinvent yourself? Not in a chaotic, unstable way, but in a fluid, creative way that allows you to respond perfectly to every fresh situation? Children do this instinctively. One moment they are a courageous knight, the next a playful puppy, and then a brilliant scientist. They have no concern for consistency. They never think, wait, yesterday I was a queen, so I can't possibly be a dragon today. And here is the most profound, beautiful realization. Every person you encounter is you wearing a different mask, playing a different role. That irritating coworker, that difficult family member, the stranger on the street who offered you a kind smile. They are all you, exploring the boundless possibilities of different characters in this immense drama. When you truly recognize this, compassion arises spontaneously and effortlessly. Not the patronizing type of compassion that looks down on others, but the deep, foundational recognition that we are all in this together, all inhabiting parts on the same cosmic stage. This does not mean everyone is the same on the surface. Personalities, backgrounds, and specific roles are vastly different. But at the deepest core, the awareness observing the world through their eyes is the identical awareness observing the world through yours. We are all windows in the same grand house, each providing a unique perspective, but all fundamentally connected to the same enduring structure. Now, let's address the most challenging aspect of the game, the part players find hardest to master. How do we handle suffering? How do you maintain skillful play when the cards seem stacked against you, when you are dealt a hand that appears to be losing? The first crucial distinction to grasp is that suffering is not the same as pain. Pain is a natural, unavoidable part of the human experience. If you accidentally hit your foot, it hurts. If someone you deeply love passes away, you grieve. These are inherent parts of the human character. They are what make the game rich and complete. But suffering is entirely different. Suffering is the story we impose upon the pain. It is the fierce resistance to what is actually happening. It is the rigid demand that life must be different from the reality it is presenting. Pain simply states, this hurts. Suffering declares, this shouldn't be happening. It's unfair. This means something terrible about me or my future. Once you fully understand this distinction, you can learn to experience the raw pain without immediately adding the exhausting extra layer of suffering. You can feel profound sadness without instantly generating the internal narrative that you should be happy. You can face terrifying challenges without adopting the paralyzing identity of a victim. You can encounter professional setbacks without the self-destructive drama that your life is now ruined. Think of it as the weather. Sometimes the sky is sunny, sometimes it pours rain. The sky does not resist the rain or desperately cling to the sunshine. It simply allows whatever weather is currently present to be. You can apply this same profound acceptance to your inner landscape. Sometimes you will feel elation, sometimes confusion, sometimes utter clarity. None of these internal states are permanent. They are all simply part of the ever-changing weather of your consciousness. Here is a further rule of the game that can save you an incredible amount of mental energy. You do not need to have an opinion on everything. You are not required to instantly judge every single experience as good or bad, right or wrong. Sometimes you can simply observe, how interesting, and move on. We have been relentlessly trained to constantly evaluate, to always be deciding if we like or dislike what is occurring. This relentless judging is utterly exhausting. It's like being a film critic who can't simply enjoy the movie because they are too busy analytically dissecting every single scene. Sometimes you can simply watch, simply experience, simply be present without needing to define, label, or take a rigid position on it all. The master player learns to hold their opinions lightly. They may have preferences, but they do not become emotionally attached to them. They can enjoy their favorite meal without becoming furious or upset when it is temporarily unavailable. The moment you become absolutely certain you have life completely figured out, it will invariably throw a major curveball. The moment you get too comfortable and settled in your role, circumstances will inevitably invite you to play a different part. Instead of resisting these sudden surprises, you can learn to welcome them. They are the mechanism that keeps the game perpetually interesting. Imagine playing a game of chess where your opponent always made the exact same moves. Or watching a mystery film where you knew the ending from the first scene. How incredibly boring would that be? The surprises, the sudden plot twists, the unexpected and challenging turns. These are the elements that transform life from a tedious routine into a constant, thrilling adventure. When you relinquish the need to control every minuscule detail, when you cultivate what we might call a taste for surprise, you begin to find life endlessly fascinating. Instead of constantly frustrating, one of the most profound and liberating discoveries you can make about this game is that there are no actual mistakes, only experiences. What you label as failures are simply experiments that didn't yield the expected result. What you label as successes are experiments that perhaps surpassed your expectations. But they are all merely data points in the grand, ongoing experiment of being a human being. A child learning to walk does not perceive falling down as a failure. Yet we as adults think we should be able to master everything perfectly on the very first attempt. We perceive mistakes as concrete evidence of inadequacy rather than a natural, necessary component of the learning process. We transform every single stumble into proof that we are somehow fundamentally deficient. What if you could approach your entire life with the same innate attitude as the child learning to walk? What if every single mistake was simply information? Every so-called failure was just helpful feedback? How much lighter would you feel if you weren't constantly carrying the debilitating weight of self-judgment about your perfectly imperfect performance? Here is another surprising truth about the game. The best players often appear to be exerting the least effort. They move through life with a quality of effortless ease, not because they don't care or try, but because they have learned to collaborate with the natural current of life rather than constantly struggling against it. It is the fundamental difference between swimming upstream and simply floating downstream. Both require skill, but one is relentlessly exhausting, while the other is profoundly energizing. When you begin to understand the deep, subtle currents of existence, when you learn to read the inherent patterns of life, you can accomplish vastly more with significantly less wasted effort. This is not a license for laziness or passivity. It is an invitation to be intelligent about when to act and when to wait, when to assert and when to yield. It means developing what is known as wu-wei, often translated as non-action, but more accurately described as action that is perfectly appropriate to the moment. It's like the movement of water flowing around a boulder in a stream. The water doesn't attempt to fight the rock. It simply flows around it, and in doing so, it slowly, gently wears the rock away over time. This is the enduring power of the gentle approach, the light touch, the skillful player who comprehends that brute force is very rarely the actual answer to life's greatest challenges. Another vital aspect of mastering this game is learning to fluidly play multiple roles simultaneously. Without experiencing identity confusion, you are a parent in one context, an employee in another, a friend, a partner, an individual pursuing a hobby. Each of these roles demands its own set of behaviors, its own specific costume, its own unique way of being. The masterful player moves seamlessly and fluently between these distinct roles without losing their inner anchor. They can be fiercely strategic in a business negotiation and wonderfully tender with their children. They can be a receptive student in one setting and a guiding teacher in another. They refuse to become permanently trapped in any single identity. Most individuals make the mistake of attempting to be the exact same person in every single situation. They mistakenly believe that authenticity means never changing, never adapting. But true authenticity is the ability to be perfectly appropriate to each moment, each relationship, and each context. It is like a supremely skilled actor who can inhabit many different parts convincingly, precisely because they understand the deeper, singular truth that connects all roles. Now, let me share one of the most transformative discoveries you can make about this game. The rules are not fixed. They are not cast in stone. They can, and frequently do, change based on the attitude you choose to play with. This is where the game becomes genuinely magical. Most conventional games have rigid rules everyone must follow, but the game of life is more like an ongoing, collaborative improvisation where the rules evolve as you play. Your fundamental choices, your ingrained attitudes, your habitual ways of simply being in the world actively influence how the game unfolds specifically for you. If you approach life from a place of chronic suspicion and fear, you will tend to encounter situations that dramatically confirm those fears. If you approach it with intense curiosity and radical openness, you will inevitably uncover opportunities and adventures. If you choose to play the victim, you will find a steady supply of people willing to play the villain. If you consciously choose the role of the hero, you will tap into your own astonishing capacity for courage and creativity. This is far beyond mere positive thinking or naive, wishful fantasy. It is the powerful recognition that consciousness is not a passive observer. It is not merely watching reality. It is actively participating in its creation. Your deep awareness, the focus of your attention, your intentional choices are all highly active ingredients in the ongoing unfolding of your entire experience. Here is one of the most beautiful and inclusive aspects of the game. Everyone gets to win, but not in the shallow, competitive way we typically define winning. The conventional idea of victory inherently requires someone else's defeat. But in this cosmic game, your success does not necessitate anyone else's loss. In fact, the more masterfully you play, the more you naturally help and inspire everyone else to play skillfully as well. When you are truly, deeply happy, you do not cause others misery. You inherently inspire them to seek and find their own source of happiness. When you are genuinely peaceful, you do not create conflict. You help others discover their own internal peace. When you are authentically yourself, you do not diminish the value of others. You powerfully encourage them to be authentically themselves too. This is why the genuine masters, the most highly skilled players, often appear to be participating in an entirely different kind of game altogether. They are not competing. They are not desperately trying to prove their worth. They are not keeping score. They are simply playing for the pure, unadulterated joy of the playing itself. And somehow, as a result, everyone in their sphere begins to play better too. Allow me to share one final and perhaps the most pivotal rule. The game never actually ends. What you call the experience of death is simply a change of costume, a complete change of role, a necessary change of scenery. The player, the real, you, the pure awareness that has been silently observing this entire magnificent performance that continues. When you truly understand this, it changes absolutely everything about your life. You stop being so desperately afraid to cling to your current role. You stop being so utterly terrified of change. You fully realize that you are not simply a character in the game. You are the game playing itself, exploring infinite possibilities through an endless series of countless characters and stories. And so, here we arrive at the close of our little exploration together. Although, of course, there is no true final end, just as there was never a true beginning. There is only this eternal now, this boundless game, this breathtaking, magnificent play of consciousness, constantly discovering and revealing itself through every possible form and experience. The next time you catch yourself taking life with too much paralyzing seriousness, I want you to remember what we've discussed today. You are not a struggling, insignificant individual attempting to survive in a hostile universe. You are the universe itself playing at the identity of an individual, exploring what it feels like to apparently struggle, apparently succeed, apparently fail, apparently win. It is all play. It is all a cosmic dance. It is all music. And you are both the composer, the instrument, the song, and the dancer. Play skillfully. Play joyfully. Play with that beautiful light touch that comes from the fundamental, liberating knowledge that this is all one magnificent, unified, cosmic game. And remember, in this particular game, everyone is the winner, because everyone is you, and you are everyone. We are all just the one boundless consciousness playing at being many. The game never stops. It only changes its astonishing, infinite form.